Hello everyone, welcome to another video. In this video, we'll discuss an important use case in Power Automate. In Power Automate, you know that there is a Dataverse connector, right? Now, in this Dataverse connector, you can perform any action that is connected to your current environment, right? And this environment is actually connected to the current environment you logged in, and it is taking your credential to create a connection to this connector, right? But what if you want to connect any other dataverse and you want to call using http action? Microsoft Dataverse is having its own Dataverse API, right? If you go here in make.powerapps.com, and here you can check in the advanced settings, you'll find Dataverse is having a, if you click on this Dataverse resource, you'll find there is an endpoint. This is the endpoint available for all Dataverse environments where a web API endpoint is exist. You can use this web API endpoint using a HTTP call to interact with its entities and resources using proper authorization. Okay. Now, if you don't want to use this standard connector, inbuilt Dataverse connector, how can you use HTTP connector to call any Dataverse in the world? Okay. For that, you need to use a HTTP call first to get to get bearer token. To connect any Dataverse, you require a authentication token. How to get the authentication token? First step is to get authentication token. Then, using this authentication token, you need to send another web API request with that token so that you can get that. So first is I have taken to showcase, I have taken a manual instant cloud flow where I do not have any input parameter. Next stage is a HTTP call. How can you add HTTP action? You can directly search here HTTP and you will find HTTP connector here. You can use this HTTP one, which is a premium connector. Click this and it will create a action for you. Now you have to mention these things. In URI, you have to mention this URL. Okay, what this URL stands for? This URL stands for the login credential to generate a token. Okay, now if you go here, let me just create a new. Okay, now this is the URL login.microsoftonline.com. Then here you need to provide your tenant ID. Okay, you might have your tenant ID created in Microsoft Azure. This is very important. Okay, if you go to Microsoft Enter ID, you have to create a new app registration, and when you create a new application registration, you have to copy this tenant ID from this username. You see, this is the tenant ID, right? Or directory ID. So you have to copy this and put it here after this microsoftonline.com, then the tenant ID, then slash OAuth2, then token. Okay. Or you can directly copy this from the endpoint option in the app registration. Okay. So this is the token endpoint that you can copy. This one. Okay. Which will print all your URL that you can copy. So this is the first step. In Power Automate, you have to mention in your uh, HTTP connector in the URL. So because this URL is necessary for generating a token, and you need to use post method, and content type you need to pass as application slash and on URL encoded www dot double double hyphen form hyphen URL encoded. This is the format you need to pass for content type, and in the query you have to use grant type client underscore client underscore credentials, and in the body you need to pass this information. Okay, grant type equal to client credentials, client id equal to the application id from app registration. This is the app registered, so here you will find there is a client id. Okay, and then you need to pass the client secret also. You have created a client secret for this app registration. Okay, so you have to, if the client secret is expired, you can create new client secret by navigating to this area. and you need to pass in the client secret. So grant type, then client ID, then client secret, then you need to pass the resource equal to your environment URL. So resource is environment URL that you can get it from your Power Platform Admin Center, or you can copy from the Web API endpoint also here in developer resource. You can, the environment URL is you can copy the HTTP then up to .com, right? This is the environment URL. All this information you need in your flow in that HTTP request. Okay. Once you send this HTTP request, it will generate a token code, application or authentication token. I have taken a compose method or compose action where I am assigning this access token from the previous step. Okay. And that is available in the access token property. Okay. That you can use a dynamic content, or if authentication token is not available, you can just use expression, and here you can directly use the body, and in square bracket you can type authentication or token access token. Okay, now you can save it. Once you save it, it will assign here, and this access token will be used actually whenever we send a API request, web API request, to fetch any data or to perform any operation. Now I have another HTTP action I have taken where I'm actually reading the contacts. How to read contacts? You have to use this web API endpoint, because Microsoft Dataverse is having this web API endpoint. And when you use this web API endpoint and use table information, you can fetch any data. So this is the web API endpoint, and you are passing contacts, means I want to read all contacts. But important thing is you have to use method as get, content type application JSON, and authorization as B capital B error space the output or the access token. Access token is available in the compose method, compose action output. So I'm connecting here, and that is available in the compose output. So this compose output is nothing but the access token that I'm passing here as a authorization B error token. Now it will get data. So let me check it how it works. Let me just save it and test it. This method you can use to generate a access token to connect any Dataverse environment, and you can also get data or perform any web API operation using this bearer token using web API endpoint, Dataverse Web API endpoint. Now let me run it and test it how it works. First, it will generate a bearer token. In the first HTTP request, it is generating the token. So if you click on this, it will generate the token using this URL. And if you go to compose, this is the in the compose you will find the access token. This is the access token, and this access token is passed to this web API URL, and it is giving data. If you click on this raw output, you will see this is the HTTP which is reading data of contacts.